As a reminder for residents and business owners, it is your responsibility to clear your sidewalk. City residents have 24 hours from the last snowflake falling to clear their sidewalks. Business owners the same, although we would encourage you to do so as quickly as possible for the safety and good for the good of our economy as quickly as possible. But it's also a time to be compassionate and to be a decent neighbor. If you know you have someone living on your block who's maybe older or who has mobility issues, offer a helping hand. Be a good neighbor here in Providence. We've got a loving and caring community, and take those extra few minutes to shovel your neighbor's sidewalk if you know that they're not in a condition to do it on their own. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. We're here today to talk about storm preparation for yet another winter storm that we're anticipating here in Providence and throughout the state of Rhode Island. Current forecasts right now call between 4 and 8 inches of snow arriving late Saturday night into Sunday, and we want to take an opportunity to remind city residents about our plan as it pertains to snow and their responsibilities. In addition to this weekend storm, there's also long-range forecasts for a series of winter storm events in the week and a half to come, so it's a good time to check in with our residents on how we're working to make sure that our streets are safe and passable, and that businesses and school kids can be back to work and back to school as fast as possible after every storm. I'm joined today by the Director of the Department of Public Works, Trish Coyne-Fay, our Highway Superintendent, Sal Solomon, and Deputy Superintendent, Richard Perella. In anticipation of Saturday's storm, we have 57 trucks available and ready to go with 62 staff people. We have an additional 15 vendors that'll be prepared to help us with the storm, and while we wouldn't anticipate using anywhere close to this, we still have 5,000 tons of salt available for the rest of the season. So we have plenty of trucks, material, and personnel ready to handle this weekend's storm and next week's forecasted weather. Snow removal in Providence is, while we hope our residents are happy with the service that they're receiving, is actually a very complex operation. We've reported on this earlier that we start in the fall practicing. We rely heavily on city inspectors who then work in a region with their plow operators and then help circle back feedback that we receive from constituents. And so throughout the storm, we would encourage residents to be patient with us. Please recognize that it does take a little bit of time, depending on the storm, to clear fully curb to curb. And so the more space that you can give our trucks and emergency personnel, the better. The more patience you can have to help us finish our work, that means everyone can have a street that's ready to go and everyone can get back to it as soon as possible. As a reminder for residents and business owners, it is your responsibility to clear your sidewalk. City residents have 24 hours from the last snowflake falling to clear their sidewalks. Business owners the same, although we would encourage you to do so as quickly as possible for the safety and good for the good of our economy as quickly as possible. But it's also a time to be compassionate and to be a decent neighbor. If you know you have someone living on your block who's maybe older or who has mobility issues, offer a helping hand. Be a good neighbor here in Providence. We've got a loving and caring community, and take those extra few minutes to shovel your neighbor's sidewalk if you know that they're not in a condition to do it on their own. We've not yet made decisions with respect to parking bans, but we will communicate that as soon as those decisions have been made. It is always something that we weigh where we know that residents want to see their streets plowed curb to curb, which is impossible to do without a parking ban, but we know parking bans are burdens, and burdens on residents and on businesses. Snowfall is supposed to start on Saturday night, which is an important night for restaurants and other businesses here in the capital city. And so that's a factor that we take into account, and we're well aware of the fact that Sunday is the Super Bowl. And we're also interested and hopeful that we can have the city back in shape so that businesses relying on Super Bowl business and neighbors who want to go to Super Bowl parties can do so safely. But all the more reason we need your patience and cooperation with the instructions that we end up putting out later today around parking bans. And again, if you can make arrangements today to be off the roads for the majority of the day on Sunday, it's more likely that we'll be able to finish the work and get everyone back and operating in time for Sunday night's game and Monday morning's work day and school day. At this point, I'm happy to take questions.
Mayor, in the past, the city's taken an aggressive stance on storm drainage cleaning. We all know snow ultimately melts. In areas like Branch Avenue, where there's traditionally been challenges, is the city ready? Do you feel you're in a good position for the after-storm melt-off?
We are. Our sewer crew works year-round. They don't stop working in the winter, and we've had very few issues of flooding in the last several months. We've had some rain events this winter already, and we don't know of any pending issues that we haven't gotten to. That said, all residents or business owners are encouraged to use our 311 system, and if you know that you've got a blocked drain, now is the time to report it at 311. Oftentimes it is as simple as removing leaves that weren't picked up, and if you're in a position to clear that yourself, please feel free to do so. If it's more substantive work, dial 311 and our sewer crew will be dispatched, but we don't know of any pending flooding issues in the city.
I don't know what the timing of the storm is, but you have plans to start pre-treating the roads and that sort of thing?
Right now, snowfall is expected to start between 8 and midnight on Saturday night. We will receive at least 2 more forecasts from the National Weather Service before then, so we'll refine that timeline as we get closer. But we'll start pre-treating in the afternoon on Saturday. Sal, do you have
Correct.
time?
Around 6 o'clock.
So we'll probably start pre-treating around 6 if forecasts hold.
And when should you have lots off the street that people can go to? What do people need to know about that?
So with respect to parking bans, in a couple areas in the city there are neighborhood pilot programs for where there is designated on-street parking even with the parking ban. If you live in those neighborhoods, you know where they are because it's been communicated to you as an overnight parking permit holder. Otherwise, this is not the first parking ban of the year. People have their plan, and we encourage them to execute their plan. We're working with the City Council in the months and season to come on expanded public locations, but right now, beyond the existing neighborhood pilot parking program, there are no public lots available. And so people need to make a plan for where they're going to park for what we expect to be a parking ban, but the details have not yet been announced.
How many trucks do you have and that sort of thing?
So we have 57 city trucks on the road plus 15 additional vendors. And so we have an adequate coverage for the storm that we're anticipating. And again, more than enough salt and sand in the salt sand mix.
Is there any plans for additional warming centers for folks that are experiencing heat stress?
At this time, there are no additional emergency warming centers, but the 3 existing shelters in the city, the Providence Rescue Mission, Emmanuel House, and Crossroads, are open and are options for those who are unhoused. The temperatures this weekend are not such that they're at the threshold where we've made additional warming capacity available as in the past. We're not expecting temperature in the teens or below.
Touching on the homelessness issue,
Yeah.
Echo Village opening next week. I'm sure you're very excited to see that come to fruition.
You're invited, right?
I am. We are planning on an announcement, an official opening for Echo Village early next week. I will be there. This is long overdue. I'm a little restrained to call it a celebration because this should have happened 9 months ago, but nevertheless, we should be pleased, and anyone who cares about the vulnerable members of our community should be pleased that that facility is finally going to be open. And by the end of next week, people will start moving in, and it is an important additional tool in the toolbox. It is not going to solve all of the challenges that we're facing with respect to the unhoused, but it has been a missing tool in the toolbox, and I hope it is the first of several of these similar type facilities or villages throughout the state.
Speaker Shekarchi has personally introduced legislation to smooth the process for which temporary housing like that can be built. Any comments on that? Do you support that legislation?
Broadly speaking, we support the legislation. Through the committee process, there's some technical amendments that we're going to seek to make, but it is the right thing to do. I've said publicly before, the primary holdup on Echo Village was the section of the fire code that they chose to apply. This gives us the ability at the city and town level to waive some of those requirements, and we would intend to do so. And so the city is in broad support of legislation, and look forward to working with the legislature on a couple of technical amendments to make sure that it checks all the right boxes so that we don't get into future delays in the future.
And lastly, on Echo Village, do you anticipate there will be any further similar housing in Providence, or do you feel Providence is not required?
We're very open to having additional facilities in Providence. Homelessness is a statewide problem that requires a statewide solution, and so I don't think the only temporary housing solutions like Echo Village should be in Providence, but we're open to having more. Siting, finding the location should be half the battle. It turned out to not just be a fraction of the battle in this case, but now that we've worked through the first one, and with new legislation supported by the Speaker, we think that those problems will not exist again. Then the hard part is finding the right spot. The spot for Echo Village is a good spot, and so we're happy to continue to work with housing advocates and others to find additional suitable locations in Providence, but this should not just be a Providence solution. Obviously, it's a transient population, and there are needs from Woonsocket to Westerly, and the solutions cannot only be in the capital city.
Thanks, everyone.
Director, just back to snow for a moment, if you don't mind. Just could you touch on just like the status of the maintenance fleet, or the fleet maintenance, excuse me, and just how it's ready to go?
So part of our the staff, the numbers that we gave you include our mechanic staff, and they don't only work during snow season; they work all year, trying to keep our fleet up to snuff. We augment our own fleet with some rental vehicles from 2 different rental companies, plows and spreaders, and so they've been getting ready, like the mayor said, long before snow season started, to make sure that we're prepared. And I feel really good about where we are.
Director, where does the budget stand for this year relative to money spent versus money on hand? Yeah, particularly given the critical nature and the uncertain nature of DC funding.
I missed the second half because of the truck.
Oh, just where do we stand on the overall budget year to date? Particularly important because of the chaos in DC.
Okay, so there's a separate snow budget within the city's budget for our operations, and we are not close to exhausting that budget. I don't have exact numbers in front of me. I could get you those if you need them, but I feel confident that we have what we need.
Guessing none of the snow budget comes from DC.
Right, the chaos currently happening, it will not affect our snow budget in Providence.
Not yet.
Hopefully
There you
never.
Thank you. Anything to add, Bob?
Just that I'm very proud of the team that does this work. It's not just putting men in plows and saying go plow wherever you want. It's a very, very coordinated operation that involves a lot of people, both in the trucks and here and at 700 Allens in terms of a snow ops center. And so I think the people that live and work and play in Providence should be really confident in this team, as I am, and very gratified that we have such people with such commitment to do this work. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.